Welcome to another edition of Central Valley Business here on CentralValleyTalk.com. We have a nice lineup of guests for you today, beginning with our first guest from the South Valley. Visalia drove up today to be with us, Dr. Kim Wildey, Doctor of Theology. The name of his nonprofit is the Kolaiah Productions.
Right.
Did I get all that right?
You sure did.
Yeah, how are you today? Good to see you.
Doing well. It's good to see you as well. And once again, I'm going to say I thoroughly have enjoyed you over the years, so it's good to see you in person.
Well, I've thoroughly enjoyed you over the years, too.
And this is the reason why. Yes.
All right, what do we want to talk about today?
Race relations.
Race relations, a hot topic in the country right now.
Yeah, and it's definitely been something foremost on my mind for all my life.
Yeah.
So
you work with what, school districts to help them cope with?
We've worked with Fresno PD for a short period of
Really?
time.
Okay.
We're working currently with Tulare County, where we'll be working with the different departments, including law enforcement. And but we've had the opportunity to work with school districts as well. And so it's just really been interesting to see, the different venues and what have you and how it applies. Mm-hmm. And essentially what we teach with our curriculum is that all of us are prejudiced. All of us have biases. And we just need to learn to deal with them and find a way that we can get together and work together as one, work together as a community as opposed to working against each other.
Hmm. So when you go into, like, you said Fresno PD, do you sit down at the morning meeting and talk to the guys, or do you meet with them one-on-one? Not just guys, women obviously also. Right. How does it work?
Well, typically what we do, we offer a training, and it would be for 10 to 20 at a time. What we want to always keep the training small, because the discussions sometimes can become a little bit intricate and detailed and sometimes more personal. And so it's easier to discuss things like this on a smaller scale. Hmm. And so what we'll do is we'll just designate a period of time, like with Tulare County right now. We're doing different departments, and what we're doing is doing 10 to 20 at a time. And 10 is perfect. 10 is really, where you have the opportunity to smaller group. It's just easier to open up. 20, anything over 20, we've found it just gets to where there's enough people that stay quiet. You don't even have a chance to actually get a chance to talk. But the biggest thing with our curriculum is that it's a discussion. Where we can talk about it. It has the involvement of 3 short films. The first film talks about the history of race. The second one talks about how it became integrated into the institutional system, institutionalized racism. And then lastly is the house that we live in today. How all this has affected us. As for instance, there's been several that have said with the issue of slavery, if we just simply took over as the early colonists, just simply took over a group of people and said, you're going to be our slaves, and that's the way it's going to be until the day we no longer need you, then history would have been so much different. But what happens is over a period of time, institutionally as well as socially, we created the stigma that certain people were less than others. And so once slavery was abolished, centuries down the road, the stigma was still there. Mm-hmm. The institutionalized situations were still there. Yeah. Have you heard of redlining with real estate? Redlining is the idea where certain neighborhoods are higher value because they're away from certain groups of people. Right. And so that's part of the institutionalized part of racism. And this is something that was set up by the FHA back in the 40s and 50s. And it wasn't until recently that it was essentially overturned and said, the FHA, no one else can get involved in that kind of thing. But it's just that over the years, it has been so institutionalized into everything that we do that it's just normal to think that certain people have certain rights and certain people don't. And so our curriculum is to expose that, to bring us to the place to where we realize that we're all the same. In fact, the house that we live in talks about the fact that mitochondrial DNA shows us that we are all very much the same. Literally, there is no difference. That this pigmentation of skin that we see on the outside is only skin deep. Other than that, we are all the human race. There's no such thing as different groups, different subspecies, and what have you.
Okay. You said the smaller the group, the easier it is to get them to open up. But, boy, if I was at work and I was told, you're going to this meeting on race relations, I'd be thinking, uh-oh, I have to watch everything I say. I might say the wrong thing. How do you break down that wall and get people to open up and be honest? As you said, we are all guilty of in some form or another.
Very much true. Very much true. We do it in such a way where we show at the very beginning that we are a part of each other, that there are no differences biologically, socially. There's just absolutely no difference between any of us. And then once we kind of get to that place, we encourage each one to speak up, and we do have in our curriculum where we actually ask each one to respond to some of the questions and some of the things that's been posed. And just as for instance, when we did it with the Clovis Unified School District, we had several of the administrative staff that were a part of the training, and they said that 4 years before that they had to go through a similar training. They said that training basically brought the hammer down and made them feel like, oh goodness, we're just horrible people. And they were very surprised when they were told they were coming to this training. They did the same thing. They were driving to work that morning thinking, oh no, I'm going to have to go to this training, don't know for sure what I'm going to be seeing, what I'm going to be feeling afterwards. And the comments that were made, and we have several of the comments that are written with the evaluations that were done at the end of all the different trainings we did for the Clovis Unified School District. But the comments that were made, both in the group as well as the written responses that we got, were that this one was so different that they were able to feel like they could walk away with tools that they now could use to be able to better society and their input in regards to whatever their particular position in school was.
Okay.
So I was proud of that. That really made me feel like we accomplished something.
You should be. Okay, so now are you looking for other departments, other government agencies to work with? Or?
Yes. There are so many institutions, so many different organizations, so many different groups of people, and some of us think that, well, we're colorblind, that we have no need for this kind of thing, but actually all of us do. And I think if we all have the idea of what formed the idea of race and how it came into being, that it's essentially a myth. There is no biological reason to it. There's no scientific reason to it whatsoever. Once we kind of see that, we can take it from there. But I would say one of the groups that I've had different people say to me, "Are you sure, Kim? That doesn't make any sense." And I've been saying I think that the churches, the religious institutions, need to have this training as well. I think it's just a place to where people can begin to understand how others react to just normal life. For some of us, in one of the videos, there's a young man by the name of Noah, who is a young white male.
I've heard of him.
Not the one with the
ark.
Not that, no,
okay.
Not one. But nonetheless, in that he's interviewed and he is asked, how do you feel about being white? And he says, there is no use in denying that there are certain advantages to being white. And this is a kid who was in high school in 2008. And so, even at that point in time, he understood that there were differences. Even though this is much, after the civil rights movement, certainly long after the emancipation and what have you, there's the idea that there is still this focal point that most people realize that there are advantages to being certain hues, certain colors.
It'll be nice when we get to the day when those kind of things don't exist anymore.
It would be. I remember one of our educators said that she didn't think we'd ever see that day. And so she said that she thought that essentially what we're doing is a waste of time. And so I went ahead and asked her, I says, so what you're saying is we should give up hope and not try? And I told her, I says, wouldn't you agree that it'd be better for us to at least endeavor to make a difference as opposed to just let it lie?
So did she finally agree with you?
She did.
She did.
She did.
Okay.
I think she probably still feels she will never see it in her lifetime. But I would like to think that we can, and we have made strides. It's easy to see we have made strides, but it's also to see when you look at the news and read the newspaper and whatnot, you can see that there. We still are having issues today, and I really believe that education is the solution to any problem. Once we understand and perceive the truth, I think then we can go beyond that to begin to work whatever it does to make it better.
All right. Dr. Kim Wildey, Race Relations Training, how can folks reach you or find out more about the services you offer?
Well, our website is www.kolaiah.org.
And Kolaiah is spelled?
Kolaiah is spelled Kolaiah. And as I was saying to you earlier, it rhymes with Jeremiah. So that's how, the pronunciation.
Kolaiah.
But the spelling is more important when you're typing in a certain. But if you'll type in Kolaiah, you're on either one of Bing or Google or what have you, it will be one of the first 10 to come up.
Okay.
So it's pretty easy to find. And there you'll find our phone number and email and everything else.
We've had some of that info on the screen there,
Yes,
too.
yes. Anyway, but delighted to be hearing from anyone. I've been told that our rates are really cheap. We ought to charge more.
Not cheap, inexpensive.
Inexpensive, there we go. But nonetheless, I just really believe that we need to get the message out. And I've lived this life, so I understand what it means to be involved and, having race not being the issue that it has been, but still being an issue today.
All right. Thank you much, Dr.
Well,
Kim
thank
Wildey.
you. Thank you very much.
Appreciate
Greatly appreciate it.
Safe travels back to Visalia. And we'll be back with more on Central Valley Talk.